Fulfilled prophecies, world empires according to Daniel chapter 2 and chapter 7 part 3. As already announced in the video Prophecy from the Old Testament, the basics, this video deals with already fulfilled prophecies given in Daniel chapter 2 and chapter 7 about the world empires. In addition to confirmation by texts in the Bible, the major events were also confirmed historically and archaeologically. The world empires according to Daniel chapter 2 and chapter 7. Part 1 showed which 4 world empires were described in Daniel chapter 2 and chapter 7. In Part 2, some characteristics of the little horn from Daniel chapter 7 were described, and a first attempt was made to identify it. Both characteristics examined clearly pointed to the papacy. However, in order to be able to clearly identify the little horn, all the characteristics mentioned must apply. The following section examines whether the other characteristics can also be applied to the papacy. Historical background. Can the papacy be the little horn? To find out, let's go back to Daniel chapter 7 and look at what is said about the origin of this little horn, and of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell. Daniel 7:20. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Daniel 7:24. Conclusion. The little horn comes after the 10 horns that we identified with the Western Roman Empire in parts 1 and 2. It will also subdue 3 kings. Does this interpretation fit historically with the papacy? Since the little horn occurs after the 10 horns, we must look after 476 AD, the official disintegration of the Western Roman Empire. Immediately after this period are the efforts by the papacy itself to exercise power as a kingdom and subdue 3 kings according to Daniel 7:24. To subdue 3 kings from Daniel 7:24 must refer to 3 of the 10 kingdoms that arose at the fall of the Western Roman Empire. In 493 AD, Theodoric the Great, king of the Ostrogothic Empire, defeated Odoacer, king of the Heruli. The first king was subdued. Daniel 7:24. Theodoric received permission to do so from the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno, and both attempted to maintain links with the papacy in order to consolidate their power. In 496 AD, the conversion to Christianity of the Frankish king Clovis I took place. In 508 AD, he also sought close cooperation between the state power of the Franks and the papacy. This laid the foundations for the papacy to later seize power. In 533 AD, the Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian I issued a decree, the Codex Justinianus, appointing the Bishop of Rome, John II, 533 to 535, as the head of all Christian churches in his empire. However, there were 2 other kingdoms that opposed this decree, the Vandals and the Ostrogoths. In 534 AD, Emperor Justinian I conquered the territory of the Vandals. The second king was subdued. Daniel 7:24. The siege of Rome by the Ostrogoths was ended by Emperor Justinian I on March 12, 538 AD. The Ostrogoths were driven out of Rome, and this enabled the Roman bishop Vigilus 537 to 555 to exercise his office as head of all Christians, not only on paper, but also in reality, thanks to the emperor's troops. In 552 AD, the Ostrogoths were finally defeated, and thus the third kingdom was subdued. Daniel 7:24. Conclusion. History shows that the 3 horns fell after Daniel 7:20, or 3 kings were subdued after Daniel 7:24. This was a direct result of alliances between the papacy and the political powers of the time. Are there other dates in Daniel chapter 7 that must be fulfilled to clearly identify the little horn? Yes, we can read about times in Daniel 7:25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. and they shall be given into his hand until time and times and the dividing of time. Daniel 7:25. Here we have the indications that this little horn will reign for a time, times and dividing of time. Daniel 7:25. How long is this period? In the Bible, a time is equated with a year, or 360 days. One time equals 1 year equals 360 days. Consequently, the one time, two times and dividing of time after Daniel 7:25 can be expressed in days. 1 time plus 2 times plus half a time equals 1 year plus 2 years plus half a year equals 3.5 years. The 3.5 years times 360 days per year equals 1260 days. As this is again a period of time in a prophecy, the a day for a year principle, see my video of the same name, must be applied according to Numbers 14:34 and Ezekiel 4:6. So the 1260 days equals 1260 years because of the prophecy. Consequently, this little horn reigns for 1260 years. Is there any evidence that the papacy ruled for 1260 years? If we take the expulsion of the Ostrogoths from Rome in 538 AD as the starting point, as from this point onwards the Pope was actually able to exercise supremacy over all Christians, the following calculation results. 538 AD plus 1260 years equals 1798 AD. Consequently, if this assumption is correct and applies to the papacy as a little horn, something serious must have happened to the papacy in the year 1798 AD. What happened in 1798 AD? On February 5th, 1798 AD, this French General Berthier deposed Pope Pius VI on behalf of Napoleon, exactly 1260 years after 538 AD, and took him into exile in France, where he died in July 799. This marked the end of papal supremacy over all Christians. Conclusion. Here too, historical evidence shows that another characteristic of the little horn can be applied to the papacy. There are other characteristics that need to be examined. In part 2, Daniel 7:25 has already been discussed. And think to change times, other translation feasts and laws. Daniel 7:25. It has been shown that the papacy tried to change the 10 commandments of God. But this verse contains even more parts. The little horn will also try to change the times or feasts, according to Daniel 7:25. Has the papacy tried to change the times or feasts? In the 10 Commandments it is described that the 7th day should be kept holy. Remember the 7th day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the 7th day and hallowed it. Exodus 20:8-11. What is the 7th day? The German word Mittwoch, which means Wednesday in English, means literally translated the day in the middle of the week. With 7 days in the week, Wednesday is therefore the 4th day. This can be used to create an overview. Wednesday, 4th day of the week. Thursday, 5th day of the week. Friday, 6th day of the week. And Saturday, the 7th day of the week, which is also known in the Spanish-speaking world as Sabado. So, according to the Bible, Saturday should be kept holy as the Sabbath. Has the papacy tried to change this day? Here are a few quotes. Question. Does the Church have the power to change the commandments of God? Answer. In place of the 7th day and other feasts appointed by the old law, i.e. the 10 Commandments, the Church has prescribed Sundays and holy days to be set apart for the worship of God, and these we are now bound in consequence of God's commandment to keep instead of the old Sabbath. Quote from the Catholic Christian Instruct, page 211. Question: which day is the Sabbath? Answer: Saturday is the Sabbath. Question: why do we keep Sunday instead of Saturday? Answer: we celebrate Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church changed the solemn feast from Saturday to Sunday at the Council of Laodicea, 336 AD. The Convert's Catechism of Catholic Doctrine, page 50, from Peter Geiermann. The Catholic Church, by virtue of its divine mission, has for over 1,000 years before there was a Protestant transferred the Sabbath day from Saturday to Sunday. Quote from the Catholic Mirror from September 23rd, 1893. It is well to remind the Presbyterians, Baptists, Methodists, and all other Christians that the Bible does not support them in their observance of Sunday. Sunday is an institution of the Roman Catholic Church, and those who observe that day are obeying the commandment of the Catholic Church. Quote from Priest Brady in an address in Elizabeth, New York, on March 17, 1903. The Bible says, remember to keep holy the Sabbath. The Catholic Church says, no. By my divine power I abolish the Sabbath and command you to keep holy the first day of the week. And behold, the whole civilized world bows in reverent obedience to the commandment of the Holy Catholic Church. Quote from Pater Enright, President of the Redemptorist College. As the papacy became firmly established, the work of Sunday exaltation was continued. For a time the people engaged in agricultural labor were not attending church, and the seventh day was still regarded as the Sabbath. But steadily a change was effected. Those in holy office were forbidden to pass judgment in any civil controversy on the Sunday. Soon after, all persons of whatever rank were commanded to refrain from common labor, on pain for a fine for freemen and stripes in the case of servants. Later it was decreed that rich men should be punished with the loss of half of their estates, and finally, that if still obstinate, they should be made slaves. The lower classes were to suffer perpetual banishment. From Ellen White's book, Great Controversy. During the Christian dispensation, the great enemy of man's happiness has made the Sabbath of the fourth commandment an object of special attack. Satan says, I will work at cross purposes with God. I will empower my followers to set aside God's memorial, the seventh-day Sabbath. Thus I will show the world that the day sanctified and blessed by God has been changed. That day shall not live in the minds of the people. I will obliterate the memory of it. I will place in its stead a day that does not bear the credentials of God, a day that cannot be a sign between God and his people. I will lead those who accept this day to place upon it the sanctity that God placed upon the seventh day. From Ellen White's book, Prophets and Kings. Conclusion: the papacy has tried to change the day of worship set out in the Bible, thus once again fulfilling a characteristic of the little horn. Has the papacy also tried to change the biblical feasts according to Daniel 7:25? Again, the answer is yes. It introduced additional non-biblical feasts such as All Saints' Day, Ash Wednesday, Feast of Corpus Christi, Assumption of Mary, and many more. Conclusion: here too, what is written in Daniel chapter 7 about the little horn fits the papacy. What other characteristics does the little horn have? Even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows, Daniel 7:20. So the little horn looked more stout than its fellows. Does this apply to the papacy? Yes, the papacy had a greater political influence in the 1260 years than Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, or the Roman Empire. The characteristics examined fit the papacy, which many reformers have identified as the little horn. However, Daniel chapter 7 contains many more characteristics that still need to be examined. Only when all the characteristics of the little horn fit can it be clearly identified. This investigation continues in part 4. Even today, there are many prophecies that are being fulfilled right now before our eyes, and many have longed to see. For verily I say unto you, many prophets and righteous men have desired to see the things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear the things which ye hear, and have not heard them. Matthew 13:17. You too can see and hear the prophecies being fulfilled right now before our eyes. For more information, see the video description. Do you listen to God's voice?